Hey! Hey! Where do you think you're going, Blackie?
A black man in a Henley looked up from the reception desk. Coffee splattered across his chest before he could answer. On purpose. The white manager slammed his empty mug on the counter.
Uneducated fool. No trash for you here. Get out!
The black man looked down at the coffee soaking his shirt. Looked back up. Barely a whisper.
You should think again.
The manager's lips curled in disgust.
Think again about what? Calling the cops? That's what happens to thugs like you.
He leaned closer.
People like you make my skin crawl.
The lobby fell silent. 20 people watched. No one moved. That arrogance will be over in 60 seconds.
Oh.
He has no idea. The man he just drenched in coffee will make him regret this for life. Let me take you back to that morning. 3 hours before the coffee, before the slurs, before the lobby turned into a courtroom. Byron Ingram woke up at 5:30 a.m. No alarm. His body had kept the same rhythm for 20 years. He swung his legs off the bed, feet pressing into cool hardwood floors. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, the city skyline blushed pink and gold against early light. His penthouse was quiet. Clean lines, warm wood, a single framed photo on the nightstand. His late mother, standing outside the barber shop she ran for 31 years in a neighborhood most people in this zip code had never driven through. Byron walked to the kitchen, ground his own beans, poured it slow into a plain white mug. No housekeeper, no personal chef, no assistant waiting by the door. That was Byron, the kind of rich that didn't need an audience. He sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through the Wall Street Journal on his tablet. Checked 3 emails, read 2 market reports. Then opened the document he'd been waiting 6 months to see. The final acquisition agreement for Crestfield Industries. Let me tell you about Crestfield. On paper, impressive. A mid-sized logistics and commercial real estate firm. 1,200 employees across 3 states. A gleaming headquarters tower downtown with a marble lobby and a corporate logo the size of a car. But behind that polished glass, Crestfield was bleeding out. 2 straight years of losses. Outdated operations nobody bothered to fix. Leadership more interested in protecting corner offices than saving the business. The board saw the writing on the wall and quietly started looking for a buyer. They found Byron Ingram. His firm, Apex Venture Capital, managed a portfolio worth north of $800 million. Byron didn't inherit a single cent. Scholarship kid, state school. First job out of college was answering phones at a brokerage firm where nobody looked like him. 20 years later, he owned the firm that rejected his very first application. That morning at 6:45 a.m., Byron signed the final papers from his kitchen island. Wire transfer confirmed. Every share of Crestfield Industries, every floor, every desk, every contract, now belonged to him. He closed the tablet, took a long sip of coffee. Done. But Byron didn't pick up the phone, didn't send a company-wide email, didn't roll up in a motorcade with lawyers and cameras. Instead, he did something unexpected. He decided to walk into the building alone. No suit, no entourage, no name tag. Just a Henley shirt, clean jeans, and a watch only people who knew watches would recognize. He wanted to see Crestfield as it really was, not the version that performs for the new owner, the real one, the Tuesday morning version when nobody important is watching, or at least when they didn't think anyone important was watching. Byron pulled into the parking garage at 8:15 a.m., took the elevator down and stepped into the lobby. It was everything corporate America loves to display. Polished marble floors reflecting overhead lights like still water. A reception desk stretching wide enough to land a small plane. The Crestfield logo on the back wall in brushed silver, each letter the size of a dinner plate. Morning rush in full swing. Employees streaming through turnstiles, badges swinging from lanyards, coffee cups in hand, small talk bouncing off high ceilings. Byron walked in calmly. No badge, no briefcase, just a slim leather portfolio under his arm. He approached the front desk. Patricia Coleman, late 40s, polished nails, reading glasses on her nose, looked up with a smile. Polite. But her eyes did that quick scan. Henley, jeans, black skin. The smile stayed, but it tightened. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I'm here to see Elliot Graves. He's expecting me." Patricia typed into her system, scrolled, frowned. "I'm not seeing anything under. Could you spell your last name?" "Ingram. Ingram. More scrolling. The appointment was logged under a confidential acquisition code Patricia had no clearance to see. "I'm sorry, sir. Let me check with his office. Would you mind waiting?" Byron nodded. "Of course, take your time." He stepped aside, stood near the tall windows, hands in his pockets, patient, still, watching the lobby move around him like a river past a stone. And that's when the elevator doors opened again. Derek Lawson stepped out like he owned the building. Phone to his ear, voice loud enough for the whole lobby, coffee mug gripped in his free hand. The kind of manager who turned every entrance into an announcement. He ended the call mid-sentence, because he spotted something. A black man, casual clothes, no badge, standing alone in his lobby. Derek's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightened, his chin lifted, and he started walking straight toward him. Derek Lawson didn't introduce himself, didn't ask Patricia what was going on, didn't even slow his stride. He walked straight up to Byron, like a man approaching a stray dog that had wandered into his front yard. "Who let you in here?" Byron turned, calm, measured. "Good morning. I'm waiting to see Mr. Graves." Derek looked him up and down, slow, deliberate. His eyes stopped on the Henley, traveled down to the jeans, the sneakers, then crawled back up to Byron's face. "Mr. Graves doesn't meet with people like you." The words landed like a slap across the marble. Two employees near the turnstiles stopped mid-conversation. Patricia's fingers froze above her keyboard. The hum of the lobby dropped by half. Byron didn't blink. "He's expecting me. The receptionist is confirming right now." Derek stepped closer. Close enough that Byron could smell the stale coffee on his breath. Close enough that the move stopped being professional and started being physical. "Let me make something real clear. I've worked in this building for 9 years. I know every single face that belongs here. And yours?" He paused. Let the silence do the work. "Yours doesn't." He pointed toward the glass doors. "Exit's right there. Use it." Byron stayed exactly where he was. His voice didn't rise, not even a fraction. "I'd like to wait until the receptionist confirms my appointment." Derek's neck flushed red. A vein twitched at his temple. He wasn't used to hearing the word no, especially not from someone who looked like Byron. He turned to Patricia. "Pat, did you schedule this?" Patricia looked up from her screen, clearly uncomfortable. Her eyes bounced between Derek and Byron like a woman watching a car accident in slow motion. "He says he has an appointment with Mr. Graves, but I can't find it in the system yet. I was just about to call upstairs." "Then he doesn't have one." Derek turned back to Byron with a thin, satisfied smile. "System says no. That means no." "The system hasn't finished checking," Byron said quietly. "That's not the same thing." Something flickered across Derek's face. Not anger, Not yet. Something colder. The satisfaction of a man who had already decided how this story was going to end and was enjoying the slow walk toward it. I need to see some identification, right now. He said it loud, deliberately loud. Loud enough for the morning crowd to hear, loud enough to turn heads at the turnstiles, at the coffee cart, at the elevator bank 20 feet away. This wasn't a security measure, it was a performance. Derek wasn't asking for ID, he was putting on a show to prove who held the power in this room. Byron paused for exactly 1 second, then reached into his back pocket and pulled out his driver's license, held it out between 2 fingers. Derek snatched it from his hand, held it up to the light like a bouncer inspecting a fake ID at a nightclub entrance. Tilted it left, tilted it right. Compared the photo to Byron's face, then compared it again, slower this time, as if he was looking for a reason to reject it. Byron Ingram, he read out loud, making sure everyone standing nearby could hear the name, making sure everyone could see the show he was putting on. He didn't hand it back. He held it at his side, kept it. I'm going to hold on to this. Byron's jaw tightened, just barely. A crack in the calm. That's my personal property. And this is my building. You want it back? You can pick it up from security on your way out the door. Now the lobby was watching, really watching. A woman in a gray blazer stood frozen near the elevator, with her coffee halfway to her lips. 2 young analysts whispered behind the turnstiles, glancing over their shoulders. An older man in a pinstripe suit stared at the floor and kept walking, pretending he hadn't seen a thing. Nobody said a word. Nobody stepped forward. Derek turned his back on Byron and whistled. Actually whistled, the way someone calls a dog, for the security guard. Glenn, get over here. Officer Glenn Tucker was standing by the far wall near the emergency exit. Mid-40s, stocky build, buzz cut, hands clasped in front of him. He walked over with the reluctant pace of a man who already knew something wrong was happening, but didn't have the courage to name it. What's going on, Derek? Derek jerked his thumb toward Byron. Keep an eye on this one. No appointment, no badge, no business being here. Something's off about him. Glenn looked at Byron. Byron looked back. Their eyes met for a full second. Glenn saw exactly what Derek refused to see. A composed, quiet man standing still with his hands at his sides. Not a threat. Not aggressive. Not even tense. But Glenn didn't say that. Yes, sir. He stepped into position 2 feet behind Byron, like a shadow, like a guard. Byron felt it. The presence behind him. The weight of being watched, monitored, suspected. Not for anything he had done, not for anything he had said, for how he looked while standing in a marble lobby wearing the wrong clothes and the wrong skin. He had felt this before. Different building, different city, different man standing in front of him. But the same exact script, word for word. Derek wasn't done. Not even close. He turned back to Byron and crossed his arms, planted his feet wide. The posture of a man building a wall out of his own body. Let me ask you something. Who sent you here? Are you a delivery guy? Some kind of courier service? Because if somebody handed you an envelope to drop off, you give it to the front desk and you leave. That's how it works here. Byron looked at him steadily. I'm not a delivery person. Then what exactly are you? I told you. I have a meeting with Elliot Graves. Derek laughed. Short, sharp, ugly. The kind of laugh designed to make the other person feel small. Elliot Graves is the CEO of a $400 million company. He doesn't sit down with guys who wander in off the street, looking like they're here to unclog a toilet. The words echoed off the marble walls and hung in the air. A young black woman standing near the coffee cart set her cup down slowly on the counter. Her hand was trembling. Not from fear, from the kind of anger she had learned a long time ago to keep sealed behind her teeth. Across the lobby, near the service corridor, a black mailroom worker in his early 30s stood gripping the edge of his delivery cart. His jaw was clenched so tight the muscles in his neck stood out like ropes. He had seen Derek pull this routine before. Different target, same exact playbook. Patricia remained behind her desk, with one hand resting on the telephone. She could call upstairs right now. She could end this entire scene in 30 seconds with a single phone call. But Derek was her boss's boss. And Derek was still talking. "You know what, Patricia? Don't bother calling up. I've seen enough." He turned to Byron one final time, stepped in close. So close their chests were almost touching. Close enough that his breath hit Byron's face with every word. "I don't know what hustle you're running here, pal. Maybe you're casing the building. Maybe you're here to lift somebody's laptop. Maybe you're just lost. But let me spell it out for you real slow, in a way even you can understand." He pointed at the glass doors, fingers steady, eyes cold. "You don't belong here. Not in this lobby, not on this floor, not anywhere in this building. Take your little folder, turn around, and crawl back to whatever hole you came from, before I have Glenn put you in cuffs and drag you out in front of everyone." Byron didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't look away. He stood there and absorbed every single word like a man standing in a downpour, letting it hit, letting it roll off, choosing, deliberately, consciously, not to react. Not because he couldn't, because he was already 3 moves ahead, and Derek Lawson had absolutely no idea that he was playing a game he had already lost. The clock on the wall behind Patricia read 8:24 a.m. Byron had been inside the building for exactly 9 minutes. And the worst part of this morning hadn't even started yet. Derek should have walked away. Any reasonable person would have. The man had shown his ID. He'd stated his business. He was standing quietly in a public lobby, bothering absolutely no one. But Derek Lawson wasn't a reasonable person. He was territorial. And the fact that Byron hadn't flinched, hadn't begged, hadn't cowered, hadn't shown even a flicker of submission was eating him alive from the inside out. So he escalated. "What's in the bag?" Byron looked down at the slim leather portfolio tucked under his arm, then back at Derek. "Personal belongings." "Open it." "No." The word hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. 2 employees near the elevator bank exchanged nervous glances. Glenn shifted his weight behind Byron, the leather of his duty belt creaking in the dead silence. Derek's nostrils flared. He took one deliberate step forward. "I said open it. We've had theft issues in this building, company laptops walking out the front door, equipment disappearing from supply rooms overnight. You show up out of nowhere with no badge, no appointment, carrying a bag that nobody here can verify. You understand how that looks, right?" Byron's voice stayed level, quiet as a still lake on a windless morning. "You have no legal right to search my belongings, and you know that. I have every right to protect this company's property. It's not your property to protect." Something dangerous moved behind Derek's eyes, a flash of heat that tightened every muscle in his face. He turned to Glenn and snapped his fingers like he was summoning a waiter. "Glenn, standard protocol. Check the bag." Glenn hesitated. You could see the war playing out behind his face. The pause, the dry swallow, the slight tremor in his hand as he reached forward. He knew this wasn't standard anything. There was no protocol that authorized searching a visitor's personal belongings without probable cause. But Derek was staring at him with the kind of look that promised consequences. A look that said, "Do what I tell you, or you're the next problem I solve." Glenn stepped forward. "Sir, I apologize. Would you mind if I just took a quick look?" Byron studied Glenn's face for a long moment, saw the conflict swimming in his eyes, saw the shame buried just underneath the pressed uniform and the polished badge. Then he unzipped the portfolio and held it open. Inside, a tablet, a pen, a leather-bound notebook with a silver clasp. Nothing else. Glenn peered in, looked again. His shoulders dropped half an inch. "It's clean, Derek. There's nothing in here. Give me that tablet." Derek reached past Glenn and snatched the tablet from the portfolio before Byron could react. Held it up with both hands, turned it over slowly, examining it like stolen merchandise laid out on a pawnshop counter. "This is a $1,200 device. You want to tell me where you got this?" The lobby temperature dropped 10 degrees. The accusation wasn't subtle anymore. Derek wasn't hinting. He wasn't implying. He was saying it, out loud, in front of every person standing within earshot. "You stole this." Byron's eyes didn't waver. "It's mine. I purchased it. Put it back." "How do I know that? How does anyone in this lobby know you didn't slip into one of our offices upstairs and help yourself to whatever wasn't nailed down?" "Because I haven't been upstairs. Because I've been standing in this exact spot, in front of your receptionist, your security guard, and 20 witnesses for the past 10 minutes. You know I didn't steal anything. You just don't care." Derek's grip tightened on the tablet. For a brief, violent second, it looked like he might hurl it across the floor. Instead, he dropped it back into the portfolio with a heavy thud that made Patricia flinch behind the reception desk. "Don't get smart with me, boy." Byron zipped the portfolio shut. His hands were perfectly steady. But if you looked closely, truly closely, you could see the muscle along his jawline working. A slow, grinding clench. The only visible sign that underneath that granite surface, a furnace was building pressure. Derek pivoted to face the lobby, raised his voice so every single person in earshot could hear him clearly. "Folks, I want to apologize for this little disruption. We're dealing with an unauthorized individual who has refused to cooperate with building security. We'll have this wrapped up shortly." He delivered it like a flight captain addressing passengers during mild turbulence. Measured, professional, almost bored. Except Byron wasn't turbulence. He was a human being. A man being publicly stripped of his dignity, one layer at a time, in a room packed with people who could see exactly what was happening. And every single one of them chose to stare at their shoes. Derek turned back, and this time he closed the distance completely, chest to chest, using every inch of his 6'2" frame to tower over Byron like a wall of hostility. "I have been patient with you, more patient than you could possibly deserve." Byron didn't retreat, didn't tilt his chin, met Derek's glare at point-blank range, eye to eye, breath to breath. "You call this patience? I call this a courtesy. Because where I come from, when a man tells you to leave, you leave. But I guess they don't teach that kind of respect where you come from, do they?" "And where exactly do you think I come from?" Derek smiled. The ugliest smile Byron had ever seen in his life. The kind that bared teeth but had absolutely nothing to do with warmth or joy. Somewhere without a dress code, obviously. He shoved his coffee mug toward Byron's chest in a sharp, violent gesture. The lid popped loose. Hot brown liquid erupted across Byron's Henley, splashing up to his collarbone, streaming down the leather portfolio, pooling on the polished marble floor between their shoes. The lobby gasped. A single, collective intake of breath from 20 different mouths at the same time. Patricia shot up from her chair so fast her reading glasses slid off her nose. Glenn lurched forward a half step, then froze, paralyzed somewhere between duty and cowardice. The young black woman at the coffee cart pressed both hands over her mouth. The mailroom worker's knuckles had gone bone white around his cart handle. His whole body was rigid, trembling with a fury he couldn't afford to release. Derek looked down at the dark stain spreading across the marble like a slow-moving flood. Looked at Byron's soaked shirt clinging to his chest. Looked up at Byron's face. And smirked. Oops. One word. One single, mocking syllable. No apology, no concern, no shame. Just that smirk. That sickening, self-satisfied smirk, hanging on his face like a trophy. Maybe if you'd left when I told you, that wouldn't have happened. Byron looked down, watched the coffee drip from his shirt onto the marble floor. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3. Each one striking stone with a tiny, precise sound that in the dead silence of that lobby hit like a drumbeat. He looked back up at Derek, said nothing. Took one slow, controlled breath through his nose, let it out through barely parted lips, and the entire lobby held its breath with him. Now, here's a detail that matters more than anything else in this scene. A detail that Derek Lawson, in all his swaggering arrogance, never once thought to consider. In the upper right corner of the lobby ceiling, tucked discreetly behind a dark glass dome no bigger than a grapefruit, a security camera sat quietly recording. It had been capturing footage since the moment Derek first raised his voice. Every word, every accusation, every gesture, every single drop of coffee. All of it, stored in crystal clear high definition with a running timestamp in the bottom corner of the frame. Derek never looked up, not once. Byron did. He had clocked that camera within 30 seconds of entering the building. Because Byron Ingram didn't react to situations, he documented them. Byron stepped 3 feet to his left, pulled his phone from his pocket, dialed a single number, and spoke just quietly enough that Derek couldn't make out the words. Naomi, I'm in the Crestfield lobby. Bring the full acquisition file. All of it. And call Elliot Graves right now. Tell him we're moving the announcement up. Immediately. He ended the call, slid the phone back into his pocket without a word. Derek watched from across the lobby, with his arms folded across his chest, still riding the high of his little coffee performance. He assumed Byron was calling for a ride home, maybe a friend to come collect him, maybe a community lawyer who'd send an angry letter nobody would ever bother reading. He assumed dead wrong. Derek turned to the remaining bystanders and flicked a dismissive hand through the air. All right, people, show's over. Nothing more to see. Security's got it handled. He straightened his tie, took a long, satisfied breath, shot Glenn a grin like they'd just handled an unpleasant piece of business together. A young white woman, barely a year out of college, stood frozen near the water fountain, clutching her laptop bag against her chest. She stared at Byron, then at Derek, then back at Byron. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. And that silence, the silence of a person who saw everything clearly and still chose to say nothing, echoed louder than every word Derek had screamed all morning. The clock behind Patricia now read 8:31 a.m. In less than 10 minutes, Byron Ingram's quiet phone call was going to land in this lobby like a 500-pound bomb. And Derek Lawson's entire world was about to be ripped out from under his feet. At exactly 8:38 a.m., the lobby doors swung open. Every head turned. A woman walked in like she owned the air around her. Black, mid-30s, hair pulled back tight. Charcoal suit cut so sharp it could draw blood. A leather briefcase in her left hand, and a look on her face that said she already knew everything that had happened in this lobby, and somebody was about to pay for it. Naomi Watts Davis, Chief Legal Counsel for Apex Venture Capital, Byron's right hand. She crossed the marble floor in 5 strides, didn't glance at the reception desk, didn't slow for the turnstiles, walked straight to Byron like he was the only person in the building who mattered, because he was. Mr. Ingram. Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. I have everything. Elliot's on his way down. She opened the briefcase right there in the middle of the lobby, pulled out a bound document, thick, heavy, official. The Crestfield Industries logo printed on the cover in embossed gold letters. Beneath it, in bold black type, Acquisition Agreement, Final Execution Copy. She placed it in Byron's hands. Derek had been watching from 10 feet away. His smirk was gone now, replaced by something twitchy, uncertain. He stepped forward with his chest puffed out, trying to recapture the authority that was already slipping through his fingers like sand. Excuse me, ma'am, you need to check in at the front desk before you... Naomi didn't look at him, didn't turn her head, didn't even slow her breathing. I'm Mr. Ingram's attorney. Step aside. I don't care who you claim to. I said step aside. Now. The words hit Derek like a closed fist. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. For the first time all morning, Derek Lawson had no comeback. No insult, no clever line. Just a jaw hanging open and a growing knot of dread tightening behind his ribs. Then the elevator chimed. The sound cut through the lobby like a church bell. Every single person within earshot turned toward those polished steel doors. They slid open, and out stepped Elliot Graves. 62 years old, silver hair combed back, navy suit, white pocket square, shoes polished to a mirror shine. The outgoing CEO of Crestfield Industries, the man whose name was etched into the plaque on the boardroom wall. The man every single employee in this building had seen in company-wide emails, quarterly town halls, and holiday party speeches for the past 11 years. Everyone knew that face. Everyone. Including Derek. Elliot walked across the lobby with the calm, unhurried stride of a man who had already decided exactly what was about to happen. His eyes swept the scene, found Byron, found the coffee stain soaking through his Henley, found Naomi standing at his side with documents in hand. His expression didn't just darken, it turned to stone. He extended his hand to Byron. Byron, I'm deeply sorry to have kept you waiting. Byron shook it, firm, brief. Elliot. Elliot's gaze dropped to the coffee stain again. His voice went quiet. Dangerously quiet. The kind of quiet that made the air in the lobby feel 10 degrees colder. What happened here? Byron glanced at Derek. Just a glance. Light. Almost casual. Mr. Lawson was kind enough to welcome me this morning. In his own way. Elliot turned to face Derek. Full body. Square shoulders. The look on his face could have cracked granite. Derek, do you have any idea who this man is? Derek's mouth moved before his brain caught up. The words tumbled out, shaky, defensive, already crumbling at the edges. He didn't have a badge. He wouldn't identify himself properly. I was just following security proto. This is Byron Ingram. Elliot said the name like he was reading a verdict. As of 6:45 this morning, Mr. Ingram is the sole owner of Crestfield Industries. He purchased this company in its entirety. Every floor, every office, every desk, every contract in our system, including yours. He let the words settle. The man you just humiliated in front of this entire lobby is your new owner. He is my boss. And as of 3 hours ago, he is yours. The silence that followed wasn't just quiet. It was a void, a black hole that swallowed every sound in that lobby whole. No footsteps, no whispered conversations, no coffee cups clinking. Nothing. Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. Glenn took 2 full steps backward, his face drained of every drop of color. The young woman by the water fountain let out a sound, half gasp, half sob, that she immediately covered with her palm. And Derek. Derek Lawson stood perfectly still in the center of that marble lobby, with his arms frozen at his sides and his mouth half open. The blood had drained from his face so completely, he looked like a man watching his own funeral. His eyes blinked rapidly. His lips moved, but no words came. The arrogance, the swagger, the sneering superiority that had filled this lobby for the past 20 minutes, all of it evaporated in a single, devastating instant. Gone. Every last trace of it. Gone. Byron looked at him. Not with rage, not with triumph, with something far worse. Calm. Total, unshakable calm. I came here this morning to meet the people who make this company run, to listen, to learn their names, to shake their hands. He paused, let the silence hold. Instead, I was interrogated, searched, accused of theft, called a thug, and had coffee thrown on me in my own building. He took 1 step closer to Derek, just one. We're going to have a very different kind of conversation now. Derek's legs moved before his brain could form a complete thought. He stumbled forward, hands rising like a man trying to stop a train with his palms. Mr. Ingram, sir, this is a misunderstanding. I was just doing my job. I was protecting the building. I had no way of knowing. Knowing what? Byron's voice was low, every syllable measured like a surgeon placing a scalpel. Knowing that a black man in your lobby might actually own the company? That never crossed your mind? Not once? Derek's mouth opened, closed, opened again. He looked like a fish pulled from water, gasping at air that couldn't save him. The coffee, that was an accident, I swear. My hand slipped. Your hand slipped. Byron repeated the words slowly, letting them hang where everyone could examine them. After you demanded my ID. After you had security search my bag. After you accused me of stealing my own tablet. After you told me to crawl back to whatever hole I came from. He tilted his head. That's a lot of accidents for one morning, Derek. Derek's face crumpled. The mask was gone. The authority was gone. The man who had strutted through this lobby like a king 20 minutes ago now stood with his shoulders caved inward and his eyes darting around the room searching for a single friendly face. He didn't find one. Byron turned to Naomi. His voice shifted to surgical precision. Security footage from every camera in this lobby, preserved immediately. Every angle, every frame, from 8 a.m. forward. Copies to our legal team within the hour. Nothing deleted, nothing overwritten. Naomi was already typing on her phone. Done. Preservation order filed before lunch. Byron turned to Elliot. Derek Lawson suspended from all duties effective immediately. Full internal investigation. HR, legal, compliance. Every complaint ever filed against him, pulled and reviewed. Elliot nodded without hesitation. Done. He turned to Derek with the expression of a man closing a door he never intended to open again. You're relieved of your position, effective now. Badge. Then leave. Derek's hand shook as it moved to the lanyard around his neck. His fingers fumbled with the clip, took 3 tries to unhook it. The badge. The same badge he had demanded Byron show. The same badge he had weaponized as proof of who belonged. Slid off and clattered onto the marble desk. The sound echoed like a gavel. Glenn, Elliot's voice was firm. Escort Mr. Lawson out. Glenn Tucker stepped forward, the same guard Derek had whistled for like a dog, the same man Derek had ordered to stand behind Byron like a prison warden, the same Glenn who had searched Byron's portfolio on command. Now Glenn was holding the door open for Derek. The irony was thick enough to choke on. Derek walked, 1 foot in front of the other. Past Patricia, sitting motionless, with tears forming at the corners of her eyes. Past the turnstiles he had guarded like a gatekeeper. Past employees lining the corridor in absolute silence, watching the man who had terrorized that lobby shuffle toward the exit, with his head bowed and his hands empty. The glass doors opened. Morning sunlight hit Derek's face. Glenn stood beside the frame and watched him walk out into a world that no longer had a place for him. The doors closed with a soft, final click. Byron let the silence settle, then turned to face the lobby. I know this morning didn't go the way any of us expected. What happened here should never happen. Not to me, not to anyone who walks through those doors. This company will be built on respect for everyone, starting today. A few employees nodded. The mailroom worker, the one who had gripped his cart through the entire ordeal, met Byron's eyes across the lobby. Byron nodded back. A quiet acknowledgement between 2 men who understood exactly what had happened without needing a word to explain it. Patricia approached from behind the desk, her voice barely a whisper, cracking at the edges. Mr. Ingram, I'm so sorry. I should have said something. I should have called upstairs the moment he started. I froze. Byron looked at her. Not with anger, not with judgment, with something closer to understanding. You can do that next time, for the next person who stands where I stood. Patricia nodded, wiped her eyes, and went back to her desk, carrying a weight she would not soon put down. The lobby incident was over in 20 minutes. The consequences would take months to unfold. And every single one of them landed on Derek Lawson like a hammer falling from the sky. It started with the investigation. Within 48 hours of Derek's suspension, Byron's team began a full-scale audit of Crestfield's internal HR records. What they found made the coffee incident look like a warm-up. Derek Lawson had 3 prior complaints on file. 3. All from employees of color. All buried. The first was from 2 years earlier. A black delivery driver had arrived at the loading dock with a scheduled shipment. Derek intercepted him at the service entrance, refused to check the manifest, and called the police. Told the dispatcher there was a suspicious individual attempting to break into the building. The driver sat in handcuffs on the curb for 45 minutes before his dispatcher called Crestfield's logistics department and confirmed the delivery. No apology from Derek. No incident report. The driver filed a complaint with HR. It was marked resolved, no further action, within 72 hours. The second was from 18 months ago. A Latina account executive named Renee Castillo had applied for a senior promotion she was more than qualified for. Derek sat on the selection committee. In an internal email, one he never expected anyone outside that committee to read, he wrote 6 words that ended the discussion. Not the right cultural fit here. Renee didn't get the promotion. A white colleague with 2 fewer years of experience did. Renee filed a formal discrimination complaint. It disappeared into a filing cabinet and never resurfaced. The third was the most recent, 8 months before Byron walked into that lobby. A young black IT contractor was working late on the 4th floor when Derek found him in the hallway. No conversation, no questions. Derek called security and had him removed from the building. The contractor had a valid access pass the entire time. He filed a complaint the next morning. The response from HR was a single paragraph informing him that management had acted within its discretion. 3 complaints, 3 people of color. 3 times the system looked the other way. Byron sat in his new office reading those files with Naomi standing across the desk. He closed the last folder and set it down slowly. This wasn't a one-time incident. This was a pattern, and this company protected it. Naomi nodded. Every single time. Then the footage leaked. Nobody knew exactly who did it. The internal investigation would later narrow it down to a mid-level IT employee who had access to the security server. But by the time they identified the source, it was already too late. The clip was everywhere. 43 seconds of high-definition lobby footage. Derek Lawson snatching Byron's ID. Derek jabbing his coffee mug into Byron's chest. The splash. The smirk. And, captured with perfect clarity on the overhead microphone, that phrase. People like you make my skin crawl. The video hit social media on a Wednesday afternoon. By Thursday morning, it had 6 million views. By Friday, it was on every major news network in the country. Local reporter Renee Foster broke the story first, with a headline that burned across every screen in America. New owner humiliated by his own manager on day 1. The interviews came fast, civil rights attorneys dissecting the footage frame by frame on cable news panels. Workplace discrimination experts explaining how incidents like this happen every day in corporate lobbies across the country, except most of them never get caught on camera. Former Crestfield employees came forward, one by one, then in groups. People who had worked under Derek for years and never had the power or the platform to say what they'd experienced. Now they did, and they talked. Derek hired a lawyer, released a public statement through his attorney calling the incident an unfortunate misunderstanding blown out of proportion by social media. He claimed the coffee was an accident. He claimed he was following standard security procedures. He claimed he had no idea who Byron was. The footage said otherwise, and the internet wasn't interested in his excuses. The legal consequences came down like a collapsing building. Byron's legal team, led by Naomi, filed a formal criminal complaint. The coffee throw, captured clearly on camera, unmistakably deliberate, was charged as simple assault. Derek was arrested on a Tuesday morning at his home, cameras waiting on the sidewalk, because someone at the courthouse had tipped off the press. Simultaneously, Naomi filed a civil lawsuit on behalf of the 3 previous victims, whose complaints had been buried. The suit named Derek individually and Crestfield's former HR leadership for institutional negligence. The court proceedings lasted 11 weeks. Derek's attorney tried every angle, claimed the complaints were exaggerated, claimed the footage lacked context, claimed Derek had an exemplary record prior to the incident. The judge wasn't impressed. Derek was found liable on all civil counts, ordered to pay restitution to each of the 3 prior victims. His criminal case resulted in a suspended sentence, 200 hours of mandatory community service, and court-ordered anti-bias training that would last 18 months. Crestfield terminated him with cause. He forfeited his severance package, his stock options, his pension. 9 years of accumulated benefits, gone in a single ruling. His name became unsearchable in professional circles without the footage appearing in the first 3 results. No company in the logistics industry would touch him. His career, the one he had spent 9 years building behind that marble desk and those glass turnstiles, was finished. But Byron didn't stop at Derek. Punishment without reform is just revenge. Byron wanted something bigger. He dismantled Crestfield's entire HR infrastructure and rebuilt it from the ground up. Mandatory anti-discrimination training for every employee, every quarter, no exceptions. An independent ombudsman office with direct reporting access to the CEO, not buried inside the department it was supposed to oversee. An anonymous whistleblower system that guaranteed protection from retaliation. He promoted Renee Castillo, the Latina executive Derek had blocked, to Senior Vice President of Client Operations, the role she should have had 18 months ago. He hired a new Chief Human Resources Officer from outside the company, a woman with 15 years of experience in civil rights law and corporate equity reform. Her first act was reopening every buried complaint in Crestfield's history. And the ripple effect spread beyond Crestfield's walls. 3 competing firms in the logistics industry quietly launched internal reviews of their own lobby security and visitor protocols after the footage went viral. 2 of them hired outside consultants to audit their HR complaint processes. Byron was invited to deliver the keynote address at the National Business Leadership Conference that fall. The topic? Corporate accountability, implicit bias, and the cost of looking the other way. He accepted, not because he wanted attention, because he understood something most people in power never learn, that fixing one man's behavior changes nothing if the machine that enabled him keeps running. Byron didn't just punish Derek Lawson. He dismantled the system that protected him. 6 months later, the lobby looked different. Not just renovated, transformed. The cold marble was still there, but the walls had changed. Local artwork hung in clean frames along both sides. Paintings, photographs, mixed media, sourced from artists across the city, many of them artists of color. Warm lighting replaced the old fluorescents. A living plant wall stretched behind the reception desk, green and breathing, softening every hard edge in the room. It didn't feel like a fortress anymore. It felt like a front door. Byron walked through that lobby on a Tuesday morning. Same time, same entrance, different world. Employees greeted him by name as he passed, not because they had to, because they wanted to. A young analyst waved from the coffee cart. Patricia looked up from the reception desk and smiled, a real one this time, no tightness at the corners. And near the service corridor, standing beside a new desk with a nameplate that read Operations Coordinator, was the mailroom worker, the same man who had gripped his cart and clenched his jaw on that terrible morning 6 months ago. His name was Terrence Moore. Byron had noticed him that day, remembered the look in his eyes, recommended him for the promotion personally. Byron stopped. They shook hands. "How's the new role treating you?" Terrence smiled. "Like I finally belong somewhere, sir." Byron nodded. "You always did." He took the elevator to the top floor, corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline he used to watch from his penthouse kitchen. His desk was clean, organized. A framed photo of his mother in the same spot it always occupied, next to his coffee mug. But there was one other item in his office that most visitors never noticed. In the bottom drawer of his desk, folded neatly inside a clear garment bag, was a Henley shirt. Coffee-stained, unwashed, preserved exactly the way it looked the morning Derek Lawson tried to humiliate him out of his own building. Byron didn't keep it as a trophy. He kept it as a compass. A reminder that the way people treat you when they think you're nobody tells you everything you will ever need to know about who they really are. As for Derek Lawson, he completed his 200 hours of community service at a nonprofit workforce center on the south side of the city. He finished his court-mandated anti-bias training without incident. His lawyer quietly reached settlements with all 3 prior victims. He applied to 11 companies in the 18 months following his termination. None of them hired him. His name had become permanently welded to 43 seconds of footage that the internet would never forget. Last anyone heard, Derek had taken a mid-level logistics coordinator position at a regional shipping company 2 states away. No direct reports, no management title, no marble lobby. No one felt sorry for him. No one celebrated either. It was just consequence. The kind that finds you when the cameras are rolling and your own words become the evidence. So the real question was never whether this kind of thing happens. The real question is what we do when we see it. Byron Ingram didn't win because he was rich. He didn't win because he had a legal team on speed dial or a billion-dollar portfolio backing him up. He won because the truth was on his side, and he had the patience to let injustice reveal itself in broad daylight. But not everybody has that kind of power. Not everybody has a Naomi to call. Not everybody has a camera in the ceiling recording every word. That's exactly why it matters. How you treat the person standing in front of you when you don't know their story, when you don't know their name, when you have no idea what they carry in their pocket or their past. So let me ask you this. What would you have done if you were standing in that lobby? Would you have spoken up? Would you have stayed silent? Be honest with yourself, because that answer says more about who we are than any story ever could. If this one hit you somewhere, drop a comment. Tell me what you would have done. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, share it. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you in the next story.
Here's what I want you to remember. The way someone treats you when they think you are nobody, that's who they really are. Not the version they show to their boss, not the version they show on the camera, not the smile they push on when someone important walks in. The real them is the one that comes out when they think there's nobody watching and no consequences coming. So pay attention. When someone is kind to the CEO but cruel to the janitor, you've seen enough. When someone smiles at the client but screams at the receptionist, you've seen enough. When someone only shows respect to people who can do something for them, you've seen everything you need to see. And if you are the one being treated like you are nothing right now, know this. Their opinion of you is not the truth about you, it's the truth about them. What they see when they look at you says nothing about your value. It says everything about their character. Like, share, and subscribe Real Stories, Real Justice every week. And remember, treat everyone the same, not because you don't know who they might be, because you already know who you are, and that should be enough.